NS Nappinai, Advocate, Supreme Court and founder, Cyber Sathi Foundation. NishaKant Ojha ji is also with us. He is an advisor and cyber and aerospace security. Kanishk Gaur, cyber security expert, who's been tracking a lot of these activities of the Chinese and what they've been trying to do. This loot and scoot and try and destabilize India from within, create a certain level of social distress because of the financial distress. NS Nappinai ji, how do we crack this? How are these loan apps able to get into our country so easily, embed themselves and run this entire looting scam? And they are targeting the most vulnerable, those who will fall for this lure. I'll give you 5,000 rupees. You have to just give me 400 rupees per a week. They'll think, in 3 weeks I'll be able to return this money. Let's jump for it. And then in 3 weeks becomes 6 months and their life is all gone for a toss. There are 3 or 4 suicides that have been committed by family members.
Anand, what do we do? In a situation where people are desperate for financial support, they just let caution, they throw caution into the air. There are a couple of things. One is we can look at a possible regulatory framework beyond what RBI has done in terms of having registered versus unregistered loan apps and cautioning customers in terms of the use of unregistered loan apps. The second aspect, which is already happening, including through channels like yours, is awareness amongst users. But I can tell you, despite all the awareness programs, despite every news item carrying cautionary tales to customers, people still fall for it because at the time of need, they just forget sensibility or logic and they jump into it. So the first step in terms of how we deal with something like this from a customer's perspective would be to stay safe, to prevent and protect yourself first, and then only look at legal remedies as the last step if you still fall victim to it. Prevention and protection would mean that you would use caution, you would verify, you would check the source, and a lot of cautionary messages are already out there to talk about how you use an app from an app store, but we already know from experience that even that may not necessarily give you protection. But the first rule is, if something sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So you have to exercise caution. The second level is, we have to get more success stories out there in terms of law enforcement. If you recollect, a lot of issues in terms of money collection happened even with respect to credit and debit card companies and bank loans, etc. It needed the courts and certain decisions that came out to say that you cannot go and start threatening people to recover. You have to follow due process. Similarly, if we have enough success stories to show that these scamsters can be traced, they can be tracked, and they can be prosecuted and punished, that would also create better awareness than just telling people do's and don'ts, etc. And finally, from a policy or a law perspective, we have to start relooking existing provisions and see how we can apply them to these evolving scenarios. We have to understand that we don't have to wait for any new laws to come forward to take recourse against these kind of activities, such as morphed pictures being circulated, obscene content being circulated, etc. We had remedies even under the Indian Penal Code against all this, and now you have a specific remedy under the Information Technology Act. So it's really important for victims to not feel stigmatized with all this, to not allow the scamsters to blackmail them, but to instead immediately take recourse to law. They have to know that they have remedies.
So why don't
I was really happy to hear that victims say he found the remedies.
Right.
So that's the real story we need spreading.
No, but that's post facto, right? That's post. That's saying there is a law that will protect you. Why can't the state and the law make sure that such apps don't have access? So this is freedom with reasonable restrictions. So let's bring in the reasonable restrictions, NishaKant Ojha. If these are unregistered apps, there is no access.
Yeah. Actually, see, Anand, this is when we talk about these kind of incident. So Beijing was always following these kind of strategies, and the China invasion was always well planned. Dummy Indians director was always used to incorporate. So it's not something like that. It is happening just in one day. So there are two ways what they are. First is there's a physical presence they want to create within the soil of India, and then do a kind of a wide labeling in preparation of these kind of apps. Then that apps basically indulge in these kind of a malified intentions of fetching the money or doing some kind of these things. Another is then they are using the different cloud services where they are using creating those kind of malwares and these apps and putting in the Dropbox or some kind of other modes of cloud, and then basically from there they basically penetrate into the different social sites, and from there they lure, and then how the person becomes. So it's I mean, when we talk about it's not like that these apps just came by themselves and we started using it. It's a kind of a you can say Ponzi, basically a kind of exercise which basically first they create, lure, then they make to enter, and then they basically do these kind of illegal intentions. Companies have floated more than 500 similar looking websites which are there already, which has been identified. And you won't believe, if you remember in our previous law many time back, there was a conversation where these Chinese have even created their fake identity.
Right.
So they are looking like an Indian. They are getting their the LLP registered and the company registered. And they are using those things.
Got it.
So it's not just simple kind of an app which is working. There is a long string which is enhanced and it's going somewhere, and then putting into the PLA, PT, and thus things work like that.
Right. Right. Kanishk Gaur?
We have to work with platforms such as Google Play Store to get these apps taken down. So far, if you see the response that we have done so far for reporting these apps is relatively low. It's more reactive. If we create a program where we give safety rating to apps based on user feedback, then it is much easier. I've seen some of the other countries launch such programs. So if you go to a country like UK, they have a program where they define the safety of the app and they work with different Play Stores, whether it is Android Play Store or iOS Play Store, and those apps are regularly removed. So if we use enforcement measures, a lot of these apps can be taken down, right? So far, we have just been focusing on national security section 69A, but from a broader consumer safety standpoint lens, if you have to look at, these are great hazards which are running in this country. If we start taking them down, then a lot could happen. The biggest issue is these apps are operating, say, in different states, and state police get this reported. Now, state police have to work with central bodies such as ED or CBIs, because this is organized crime which is perpetrated against Indian consumer. So this requires greater collaboration. This would require more of public-private partnership where not just the app stores, but also government takes measures. Also, we will have to bring in stronger measures for regulating and auditing non-banking financial services. NBFCs is a booming market, but the way they are lending money, who is giving them money? Nobody is monitoring that. Right? A lot of this money is originating from, say, China or Hong Kong. Who's tracking those channels? Nobody is looking at those channels. So this has become a new policy scheme which is running in this country. So stronger mechanisms for regulating and auditing them would be there. Also, what kind of permissions these apps are taking from the user's phone. The biggest issue is they take all the contacts and they start threatening people that they will send morphed images. So these kinds of permissions, they have to be restricted. If certain apps are asking for such permissions, they have to be taken down. So it has to be a constant monitoring mechanism.
Rather than, they should not be available in the first place. If they are not registered and if they are not sanctioned, if they are not above board, then they should not be available in the first place. So let's start it there. Let's nip them in the bud. Let's not, if any Play Store is offering these apps, then you got to take down that Play Store and their platform itself and go after that platform. The responsibility lies on the platform. That's how